more bacon, anyone?
Yarp.
Not for me. I'm still not hungry.
Oh, come on now. You don't want to travel on an empty stomach, do you?
Actually, I decided we might stay a couple of days. I'd like to visit John's homestead, to pay my respects.
I understand. And, I would join you, but I have a few errands to do myself.
Samuel, thank you so much for your kindness.
Oh, no, please don't mention it. It's the least I could do. Just please, try to be back before dark. Otherwise, well, you might be seeing John in the labyrinth.
Hello and welcome to the LARP Noobs. It's been a while since we've done this, or a while since I've done this, actually. It's like you did one fairly recently, didn't you, Dave? But for me, this has been a fair old little while. Yeah, quite a long one. And today we're joined by someone who've actually recorded a sort of YouTube episode with, Merlyn.
Hi, this is my first one ever. I haven't done one of these in forever.
Well, we did have Merlyn on the live stream where we crafted.
That was it, yeah.
And basically we had a really, really good time, and definitely wanted to have her here as a guest for podcast listeners, really.
Yeah, and today we were going to sort of look at the idea, considering that was a crafting stream and we were looking at crafting there. And it's been a while since we've touched on crafting. The last one I did was with our friend Robert, who plays Caro. But this time I wanted to really concentrate on the idea of like either finding your character through kit, or how you can also, your character can help you then seek out the types of kit that you might go and get. And I guess this is kind of, in my mind, this is kind of broken down into sort of different sections. There's like the gifts that you'll get, or that you'll give, and how I'm mainly focusing on sort of icy gifts there, and things that you kind of earn. And I guess that's where I wanted to sort of start it off, or really actually just in general, if you wanted to sort of, how you guys kind of feel about the idea of sort of fleshing out your character through the gear and sort of kit that you kind of find as you're going through your kind of your character's development.
Merlyn, you're the guest. You start us off.
Oh, wonderful. So I think, gifts in character are definitely a big part of how your character grows, because at least for me, Empire was my first LARP. So I showed up and, I'd tried to build a costume. I'd been to charity shops and I sort of put it all on, and I was still very much me, but in Aisha's clothing, sort of like bumbling about. I hope I fit in. I hope I've covered up this logo and that logo. But I think definitely, like, over time, little things that sort of were given to me or that I bought, definitely became a lot more of things that I recognized with stories of my character. So it became less a memory of, oh, I bought that in a charity shop, Merlyn did that, and more of a thing of, oh, I was gifted this by my friend.
I think that's such an
somebody
important...
created this for me as a person, as a character, as opposed to just me as the player.
Yeah, I think that's such an important aspect to it, is the idea of like things that can actually symbolize memories within the RP that you're experiencing. And that, we've all got kind of instances of these kind of items, and you will, I think, naturally kind of develop things as you kind of go through role-playing your character. I remember when I got a dagger from Caro that basically symbolized the fact that I was one of the council members on the Entwined Paths, and like that's something that I've earned. You know what I mean? That's something that I've actually has some kind of poignancy to it. And as you say, it's more than just something that I've picked up in a shop or I bought for myself. And those kind of things we'll touch on later as well. But
yeah, I completely agree. I think Merlyn made a really good point, how it's like it's part of your character's story, and I think that's something very like even in a storybook, right? Like a character develops as their quest continues, and they see new things and they experience new things. And I think those little hooks from one item or another can really, I don't know, it helps me for sure, right? Like 100%. Like when I put the garb on, I have a much better idea, and the more I add to it, the better idea I have of who my character is.
For things like you've got that token from Skywise, right? The Skywise Fowl that you kind of got from him in a letter, right?
It's my favorite thing. Like it's the thing that gives like agency and purpose to my character almost. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that important, because it's especially receiving it as a gift.
Yes,
There's something really very different about that, and especially icy, like an icy gift for an action, right? Like, so this is interesting. Like, I'll remind me about giving a gift to somebody else like later on. But yeah, we should talk.
Well, we can broach into that. I think the two are intertwined actually, and I wanted to go into that a little bit as well because I think there's also a lot of value to be gained from giving gifts as well.
Yeah. So basically, I'm 100% sure he won't mind, and I would very much avoid things that are in game right now, or things that, like, we're very good at talking about things that have happened, but talking about things that are going to happen at LARP is a very different ball game. But it's an interpersonal relationship,
obviously.
so I think we're good basically. But Sparrow telling his tale of, oh my god, I'm mentioning it again, Ifan's death. Jesus, I need to stop mentioning it. But which was my old character. So the I would like to do something, and not just do something, but give something to him that is a representation of the appreciation of our striding towards him as a fellow that we like, respect, and thank for his gift of story, which made the character live on past his death. It's the best thing. So I'm really stumped. I really like the idea of crafting something. That's the thing that I keep on falling back on. I feel like buying something and just giving it to someone, it's not as meaningful as it would be if I had actually put my hands to work and my imagination and created something specifically for him.
I mean, we'll get to. I mean, again, that touches on something that we'll get to a bit later, I think, naturally as we go into crafting. But there is definitely something special, and Merlyn, I know a lot of your kit, for example, has been crafted, but there's something. The idea of actually sort of expending time and energy on a process to make something, and even if that thing that you render from that time and effort isn't necessarily the, an A++ kind of piece of kit that you would, pay X number of pounds for or whatever.
It's the one thing. That's the one thing I'm consciously aware of it, but I still struggle with it. Is that not creating the best thing in the world is okay. Right? Like, I'm sure if I did something, I don't know, imagine X piece of craft work and it goes horribly wrong, and I give it to him and it's still worth, as a gift especially, it's still worth something, right? Like, the emotions involved are more than the craft value of the item, right?
Consider also something that is, I guess, it's not so much kit, but it is something that you receive, and it always is exciting, is when you receive IC mail. And I think that there's sitting down and actually penning a letter, IC, and sending that to someone or receiving it. It's cool, right? And like the fact that you actually took time to sit down and kind of construct something, even like on that sort of simple level. And, my calligraphy is awful, right? My handwriting is the worst. So, like, anything like that is kind of obviously not going to be very good from me. But yeah, it's kind of, what I mean?
You're doing yourself a disservice. It's very good. That's, I think that's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Is this, I think you have to overcome that to realize what you're actually doing is something really, really cool, and you're sending a little bit of love to someone that you care about, right? Like, which could be taken out of context, but
no, but it's the idea of and this goes for both receiving and getting gifts, I see.
Sorry.
and I think this is what sort of separates IC gifts from, I mean, we've had some wonderful kind of OC kind of things where we've people we're friends with and stuff. You kind of give stuff to each other and so on, and and sort of stuff like that, which is lovely and amazing. But there's something quite special about the idea about touching someone's character arc enough that there's an exchangement of gifts that symbolize whatever story beats that you've been through as characters. You know what I mean?
I totally. Dude, like, I think there's something about, like, we kind of get past it with Christmas and stuff nowadays, but at LARP, it's cool. It's also kind of embarrassing, like, when you're the giver,
Yes.
Or it can sometimes be a bit awkward, but like, or the receiver, right? Like if you're receiving a gift and you're like, oh shit, like, oh cool, I did not expect a gift. There's like, it's still awesome. Like, especially like you said, like the little bits that you gather as part of your kit are just like, yeah, like my character earned a bunch of this shit, you know?
And it's like, I mean, because you got to think, I mean, it's a representation of time within what isn't essentially like a fairly compressed amount of actual experience. You know, a LARP event is only so long. There's only so many of them a year. The fact that you've gone to, you spent moments within that constrained period of time that are long enough to warrant your characters having enough interactions that then gifts and kind of things of that nature kind of occur. It's kind of represents something, and I think it has some kind of worth to it. So that I think that was a really Go for it, sorry, Merlyn.
Yeah, no, let's keep going. No, finish your point.
No, and I just think I think like that idea
Good work
of
by you, Merlyn. You got to cut him off at the pass, otherwise he'll just.
Oh, I'll just go for it. Okay, you just really have to cut me now.
The sunset. If anyone thinks that I'm being rude with Ian sometimes, like just re-listen to when I butt in to Ian. Okay, just re-listen to it and realize that it comes from a place of kindness. Ian knows. Once he gets
I'm always fully aware of it. Like I just will keep going on and on and on and not
It's
stop.
a fantastic trait, Ian. It's a fantastic trait.
But sorry, Merlyn, you go for it. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, I think especially when you're gifted a kit, especially like I keep saying as a new player, I still consider myself a new player.
How long have you been going
I've done exactly 1 year. Exactly 1 year.
Then you're not a new player.
I still consider myself fairly new, to be honest.
My second, or maybe it was my third event, I was frequently told, "Oh, you're not new anymore," and I was like, "Well, I still feel extremely underprepared."
Yeah, dude, I feel new.
Dude, with the title of the podcast, like everyone's like, "Oh, you're not noobs anymore." It's like, nah, dude, I still feel. I mean, let me put it this way: the last episode that we recorded with the military council, if that proves that I am a noob like anything else, like 2 years in, and I'm still like completely ignorant to so many things. Oh. Actually, the segue. Sorry, Merlyn. We'll get to you real soon, but I need to mention that the vines are not an in-character group; they're a self-forming group. So, effectively, like PD doesn't recognize them as an archetype, but they are a self-organizing group. And I made a mistake in mentioning that they were an archetype last time. So I just wanted to set that
that's
straight.
interesting.
Yeah, I noticed.
I know, and there's enough fake news.
As a Vine, I noticed.
So, and that was Andy Raff actually messaged me about that. So Andy, please do keep us up and keep us legit on that.
One day, Andy will convince you, and you'll let us.
I actually, to be honest, I didn't realize that was. I honestly didn't know that was the case. But no, I mean, I think that's it's definitely worth being caught.
We might
on
have
that kind of
touted that before. So me and Ian have spoken about it in private before. Maybe we just misunderstood.
100%. Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry for railroading the conversation away. But Merlyn, what were you about to say? Do you remember? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I did. I wrote it down because I tried to say it about 3 times.
No, future guests be warned. Like that's a great strategy. Absolutely fantastic.
So I was going to say that obviously at LARP, the big difference between LARP and tabletop is that you have the things physically with you. And so you're building the world around you physically. PD goes so far building the sets, and then it's up to us to come up with our costumes. Then also to show the sort of physical connections between the people, we end up with these gifts and icy mail and stuff like that, and it's absolutely amazing because as a new player it does make you feel like you're being noticed. And honestly, like the first few events was me looking around at everybody with stars in my eyes going, please notice me. And I think it came to like my third or fourth event and somebody was like, oh hey, I made this for you, and I was like, what? For me?
Wow, that's amazing. What
it's
did you
so
get?
cool.
If you don't mind me asking.
So one of my friends striding, they made me a wand. So they custom made a wand themselves.
That's really cool.
Because Anwin, who I'm sure won't mind me mentioning her because she listens as well, has a gigantic hammer. And we did, in national training, we were doing execution practice. And we joked that if I had a wand that was like a giant nail, we could do group execution.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
And the next event, I was presented with a wooden stake wand.
Oh my word, I love it. Just as a visual.
Okay, 2 things. Merlyn, what is your nickname? And secondly, what was the person's name again?
So Anwin Stormbroke is the member of the striding, and IC.
Hi, Anwin.
I don't remember the guy who made the wand, but it's absolutely beautiful. and I need to track it down, like the names.
Okay, and what's your nickname?
But yeah, so I have written on my soul, Aisha the Executioner. And it confuses people because I am in fact a healer and not generally considered to be a thorn. And it's not that I execute lots of people. I'm not like a gigantic executioner. I just tend to do it in creative ways, I think. And it tickled quite a lot of people at national training and then later on the battlefield. So Anwin decided that as a guide, she would just testimonial that on my soul. Which honestly has served quite well, with Wintermark telling me not to execute people and me saying I physically can't stop, it's written on my soul.
It's one of those things where you meet someone and they seem like such a nice person, and like friendly, and then they let you know their nickname, and then you're like, wow, LARP is a funny old game, isn't it? It's like, I'm genuinely intimidated, like by someone that has the nickname of the Executioner.
Honestly, I want to go to an execution at some point and just see if that's a title that's ever going to be up for grabs. Because
who does the execution?
Goals.
Is it the judge that does it, or do you know?
I have no clue. I don't know. I've never seen someone.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, actually,
heard of
do you know what?
someone.
I know the perfect person that we can actually have on to talk about that. So let's move on. Ian,
Yeah.
get us back on track. Ian, you're host today, so you have to
I
keep
know,
us on
yeah.
track.
So I was just going to really sort of see if there was any other examples that people wanted to throw forward of like gifts and things that they'd got or given. And I mean, I can kick it off, I suppose. But one thing that I guess at the very first event I kind of attended with you, Dave, and obviously it was our first event. I brought along this crystal. It was like a crystal necklace thing that I just bought, and the idea was that it was gonna be like my icy mother's kind of crystal that represented who she was, and like the link that I had with this, the one person I knew had an icy link with, who I've mentioned many times before, is a character in Urizen called Lanius. So we kind of tracked him down. I did a very awkward kind of spiel, and it was like in almost complete darkness, so I couldn't see anything. And I gave him this kind of crystal, and it was kind of cool, right? Just to have like that as an in. And I think I've sort of spoken about this throughout several episodes of the podcast, but kind of crafting and making stuff and having things as well. I mean, even if they're not crafted things, to give away is actually has a lot of value to it as like a storytelling and sharing device, I think.
Dude, massively. I think it's like I think, like I was saying before, like if you think that someone's done something in game that is cool, or even if it's someone that you potentially don't know that well, to be fair, I think that would be cool, right? Giving someone a gift for something that they've done that you don't know that well, that's cool as well. Either way, like I think there's something to be said about that. Obviously, don't buy them like or make them like something really big, like a giant armchair, right? Because then they have to get it back in their car. So I think there are, limits, or like a giant dining table, or any of those sort of things. But yeah, maybe a small gift.
Well, for the last couple of events, as the Vines, we all obviously have our white sashes that then we either embroider or paint the red diamond onto. And for the last couple of events, I've sewn 40 white sashes per event to give to people who are either new or they've lost their sashes.
What?
And honestly, it doesn't take much long. I pin them up whilst I'm watching TV and I sew them in one big go. But when I first got mine, I sort of felt like, oh, I'm part of something now. This is the first thing my character has solidly done. So it was really nice to be able to hand those out to new players.
Is that for a vine, or what does the white sash mean?
So the white sash itself, as far as I'm aware, just as an Avar healer, just means a battlefield healer. So somebody who's gone on the battlefield, or sometimes goes on the battlefield and heals. And then if they've got the red diamond on it, then they are a vine specifically, which is a smaller group within that.
Yeah, so
not every battlefield healer is a vine.
Yeah, that's what separates me and your character, for example. So, for example, I've got the white sash, but yours has the diamond on it. Yeah,
it's really interesting.
But that was really nice to just have something that
I
sort of felt like a cycle of something that made me feel sort of welcomed and accepted, and it's nice when people swear their oaths, or even just before they have, just being able to give them something.
I think that's such a great like idea of something that's fairly inexpensive, that is like something that you can immediately give to a new player that will make them feel part of something, right? Like and also like a signifier to others. So if you see someone of the same, I think it's a lot like the face tattoos in Navarre. The face tattoos are great because if you see someone with face tattoos, you're like immediately like, oh, Navarre. That's who it is, right? Like it's a Navari, and they're a friend of mine, whoever they are. You know, maybe it's worth bringing up my purchase from the Armchair Armories, Ian.
Yeah, go for it. If you've got somewhere you want to, yeah.
So basically, we have a banner, which is a group of stridings and steadings that form together to form a larger collective called the Entwined Paths, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to try and get some pendants done or some pins done, you know? So basically I got in touch with Matt at Armchair Armories, had a bit of a chat about what we wanted, and then I put it out. This isn't like everyone put money in, right, to try and get the amount, which was, when you come as a group, was very inexpensive for what you're actually getting. And so I have like a whole bunch of these. They're like, how do you describe them? And they're like thorn bushes in a. Is it?
So it's essentially, because it's actually based off the design that we have for our flag, essentially, or our sort of symbol, which is essentially these kind of. Imagine like a kind of a Celtic knot, which is
they're like thorns as well, aren't they?
Yeah, sort of like.
Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry,
thorns that are intertwined, basically, and as the name would go, in this kind of circle, and then that has these kind of flowers on it, essentially. Which represent the 7. I think it was 7 flowers at the time, although I think there might be more.
I think there's a certain amount on the pendants themselves representing the original founders, or something ridiculous, whatever that is. Like otherwise, it's going to be more flowers than thorns eventually, I think.
Exactly.
But, it's so well crafted. Like they're absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to give them out when we get to.
I'm so excited.
But going back to the IC side of this, is that with a large striding, like a large banner like that, you need to have some sort of identifying mark, but also that can be like something external, right? So if you start seeing a whole bunch of people with one very significant mark about them or something very distinctive, you're going to recognize them as a group, right? Like, and for better or worse, I think there's something really cool about that in game, you know?
Oh, I think it's hugely important. I mean, you can take this out to sort of the wider sort of lens look, and you've essentially got the idea of nations and the sort of different kits, and if you look and feels and everything else that goes into the different nations. And there's a spectacle to seeing different nations. We've spoken about this before, but when you are looking out and you can just notice different nations, and then obviously different subgroups within that nation, and different representatives of different smaller elements within those subgroups. It adds so much character, and it's so representative of everything that goes into it.
Do you remember when we did the treasure hunt thing that went badly wrong?
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, we were running around trying to look for. I think there were bits of they were tied ribbon, on, weren't they? They were ribbon tied on. So you had to go and look at people's kit like really closely, and like really look people up and down. And I think there's like that was a great like early lesson about. You can tell a lot about a character by the personal items that they represent themselves by, and I think there's something really cool about like. When you start to build up these items, right? Like, Ian, what would you say are some of the items that you have on? If you're going to look at Talus, right? What things about Talus's kit represent him as a character? Do you think?
Well, I mean, my kit's changed a fair bit. I was going to touch on this a bit later because I think there's a really interesting sort of shift that happens. And and I think you kind of touched on this briefly, Merlyn, in the beginning, actually, this idea of the vision you have when you walk into your first event with your whatever items that you've been able to basically kind of bring together to represent your character on the field, and then where your character goes from there. So I remember when I first went, we'd been to, I think it was a LARP fair event, Dave, and I'd bought like this Mongol style kind of hood from Chow's, which is fantastic. But it's, as I've kind of grown more into my character, it really doesn't actually represent who Talis is. It maybe represents who Talis was coming back from where our kind of backstory is. But who he is now, it's not really that representative of him.
Well, he's far more fancy now, Ian.
Exactly. And so now my kit's actually changed quite a lot. And to the point where people kind of regard me as being a bit sort of fancy pants. Talis.
I don't know who does that, Ian. I don't know who does that.
The fact that that's a thing, right? That is something that has become noticeable in some way is like, that's something I'm like, I enjoy, right? Because it's something that is, again, it feels kind of slightly earned, right? That the idea that, like, even though it's essentially just me putting bits of kit together, the idea that I've actually managed to create this aesthetic that draws that, you know what I mean, that kind of reflection on it, I think is interesting, and I enjoy that, actually.
Yeah, totally. I think like we keep hitting that note, right, of it's actually the kit and the little bits of stuff are a sign of progression, right? Like they're hours served or accomplishments made or friendships made, right? Like they kind of represent that. Not to say that buying stuff or crafting your own stuff for yourself isn't like totally worthwhile. Like when you're changing character, for example, I bought like a few different things that kind of like try to distinguish myself from my old character. Are you both have? I know Ian hasn't, but Merlyn, have you died yet?
I have not. No, I've only been hit once.
Ugh, immortals
in my life. But honestly, I mean, it'd be quite easy to say it's not for lack of trying. I really, really, really want to be healed, god damn it. But then also there's a flight in me that knows like I'm far more useful alive. So when somebody turns at me, I'm just gonna sprint somewhere more useful away from things with sticks.
Totally. I think all healers should turn and run away. Like there's nothing no citizen resents a running healer.
That's the excuse that I use.
As a mage, the absolute max I can get through like my normal hit points and my armor is 4. So unless I was gonna ignore spells and just amp up my fortitude, I can never get more than 4 hits. And I did my first 3 events I did with 2 hit points, and I did from my second event I've done every skirmish and every battle I've been offered to do, and I've gone on all of them with 2 hit points and no armor.
It's
honestly like
staggered. I'm like I worry about like 5 or 6. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm nervous.
This is kind of where I am, because being an archer and a physic, and I wear heavy armor now. But even so, it's actually only like 5 hit points or something. I can't actually remember. It's Ian, not very many at all.
Don't worry, Ian. You'll never get close enough to anyone to actually hit you. So
you'd be surprised the number of times I've been downed. Actually, is or I had to be pulled out by. I mean, you've saved me on more than one occasion, actually.
I've been high-fived by the Valorn. Like they've accidentally high-fived me, but not with a weapon, so it doesn't count.
But no, I mean, I think there is, as sort of time's gone on, I've sort of tried to sort of reflect on who I am playing Talis at an event is quite different from how I thought it would actually be in that kind of mind's eye view pre my first event. And that has then made me sort of think much more about how I want to represent the character that I've grown into. And that's meant things like making a sash, for example.
It's sort of like meeting someone for the first time, where you think, you know, this is the first version of the which is kind of what you're planning as the player playing the character. And then bit by bit, you sort of work out, well, that bit of their personality doesn't really work. I don't like playing that. I really wish I could do a bit of that. and you pull it in. So even if it's not gifts from other people, you do sort of learn better what your character actually likes, and it's almost like the character starts to choose what they wear.
I completely agree, and I think there's also, unlike say in a role playing outside of LARP, a sort of pen and paper, if you like, it's that the situations can be often are much more mundane that you find yourself in. So your character, even if you're a sort of dark and brooding character who, to be honest with you, probably isn't the funnest archetype to go with, but even if you are, it's like, who is that character when they're sitting around eating a hot dog or something, you know, having a laugh with their friends, right? Like that's all the various mundanities that go into life are part of LARP, and also then feed into the character when you're ICing any of those individual situations. So your character becomes much more three-dimensional in that case. They're not so much necessarily the archetype. And I think that it's sort of the image I had when I was going to go as Talis was going to be, in a sense, you know, with this tragic backstory and all those kind of cliches, has kind of changed and shifted into something that's just much more well-rounded, I think, and is just actually within a range of where I'm comfortable as Ian playing that character, you know? And I think that's hugely important. Yeah. And then that's then let me think, okay, Talis is like this. He's, if you like, he's kind of like Ian, and I think this is how I think many like how I probably will naturally fall into any other characters I play. He's basically Ian with a couple of dials turned up, right? And it's like that. So then how would Ian with a couple of dials turned up dress in this environment if he was part of this nation? And I know that kind of sounds very simple, but that kind of sort of course of water course, if you like, of logic is kind of takes you down, I think, a path of character design and kit design, which has kind of led me to where I am. And it's completely divergent, actually, from where I thought necessarily I'd be, because I'm really into this, as I say, a bit more of this kind of sort of rough kind of aesthetic that I wanted to go with originally. I had this, I say, this kind of Mongol-style hood and this kind of all this survivalist kind of gear and stuff. And that's all been stripped away now, and I'm almost completely the reverse. And I have all this awesome kit from Chow's, which is fantastic. But actually, next time I went to Chow's, I bought myself this really awesome green flared sort of coat, which is completely the opposite style and is now extremely fancy. It just goes to show the way that your character can kind of change.
Outlandish. It's outlandish. That's what it is, Ian. But also, Ian, I also made a purchase from Charles recently.
You did, yes.
So you're not the only fancy boy in the Ashbourne anymore.
Well, I think the Ashbourne in general is kind of
we're fighting over the fancy pants.
When two grown men fight over fancy pants, they're only going to get ruined, aren't they? They're only going to get ruined. But I bought Charles had a sale, and I bought like this. I don't know what it's like the thing that you have and the thing underneath it, but they're different colors, so it shouldn't be too bad. But we are gonna. Oh, I need to find someone who's a seamstress or. Seamstress? Is that a sexist term? Seamstress? Seamster?
I don't know.
I don't know. Please let us know in the comments.
It might be gendered.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Taylor?
Maybe let us know or don't let us know. And someone that can sew to basically make it, because despite my quarantine girth, I'm still kind of roomy in this thing at the moment, so I need to kind of get it pulled in. But I think it's really cool. Like I think on the podcast we definitely, and I think this is true, crafting your own kit is something really special, and I think it's awesome. And I don't mean to like put it down, but because I feel sometimes we give the impression that buying stuff isn't like it can't be as memorable.
It's a cop out.
No, exactly. And I think that's not true.
That's definitely not true.
It's an absolute lie.
Yeah, I think that's especially when you're first starting a character. Actually, let me go through a few bits that I've gone through with a journey, right? So when I first bought my axe at the first ever LARP event we went to, oh my god, this is the guy. This is the guy. This is the axe. This is the guy, right? Like I had a really good idea of who he was, and then we got the Gimp armory in, which which definitely laid like to more of a aggressive style, I would say, right? Like it's all in black, it's leather, it's like it's Mordor-ish, right?
Yeah.
But now changing from that character to my current character, it's like I bought like a couple of different bits that are kind of like
you've made really intelligent purchases, actually. I mean,
and cheap too. Like I keep banging on about how you don't need to spend the earth on LARP kit. I bought so I was gonna craft a necklace made out of shells and other interesting bits, and then I was looking for like shells on eBay and all this stuff, right? And then I found a necklace made out of shells that looked really, really good, and it was like way cheaper than buying all the shells and all the stuff I needed to make a necklace. So I was like, sold. It's really good. It gets tangled up really badly every single time. So
you've actually got loads of really nice bits of bling and stuff, and not bling, but like you have like really nice kind of like necklaces and
natural bling, right?
Yeah, like this kind of layering effect that I think actually adds a lot of character. Like you've got these teeth that you had. The teeth actually is a whole other. Remind me of the teeth in a bit. Like after I've just like anyway, the tambourine. Sends a message, right? Like it's a very aggressive instrument, and I like it a lot. So therefore, it's that kind of like summer, ambitious, like bold type vibe to it, and I like that. I also bought a headband, and this was an Etsy purchase, which was it's basically a leather band around my head, but it has a octopus in the middle, made out of some sort of metal. But it's like,
is it brass?
Probably brass. I'm
Yellowy.
assuming brass. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, boom, sold, right? Like it's an octopus. Who doesn't like an octopus? An octopus represents like intelligence, adaptability, right? It's a cool thing. And you get to have that on your headband as a mage. Like it's perfect. Like I love it. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I've kind of come with my character, and also swapping between two different characters, and how drastically I would like to think that I'm playing both characters very differently now. Like,
I
think costume helps with that. You know, like there's a few moments of like my current character's idea is kind of to empower others with mixed success, but when it is successful, it's really cool. And I think some of that garb when I'm walking around and clattering around because of the shell necklace. I think that kind of reminds you of who the character is, right?
But I think that all of that, like the different layers, the logistics of your kit as well, and I mean, bear in mind again, to talk about the mundanities, you have to do all of the things in your kit, so it becomes, what level
I've lost so many boots to just not being grippy enough. The amount of boots halfway through national training and I've been barefoot and everyone's looking at me and I'm like, I can't fall over again. I'll actually die.
Yeah, and it's just, but having like pouches, for example, and having the necklaces and things
pockets,
like you have.
Pockets, pouches, bandoliers, a bag that doesn't move around too much when you run. Like these are things that the savvy warrior will bring with them to a battle, right? Like you do not want to be overburdened with stuff. And I think that adds to the kind of, and we're speaking as Navarre. We're a very Navarre-centric podcast, obviously, but like the practicalities of battle is something that's built into the brief of the nation, and I think that's something actually very valuable when you start putting it into action.
But I think also outside of battle, I was where I was kind of going with it was like your necklaces and stuff, and all of these other things. It's almost like
let's talk about.
Sorry, can I finish my point?
Sorry, of course you can.
Sorry, and it was like it adds like this kind of auditory kind of element to it. Actually, you were talking about sort of walking around Jangalong. There is actually something like when I walk along, I have a wooden mug that is at my side, and I basically chucked in some OC money to help fund the fireball that we have in the middle of the sort of the central pit area, and as a result of that, I got this little necklace thing which has this little symbol, and I have that wrapped around my mug, and just while I'm walking along, this thing is constantly like just tapping, just like little tunk, 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 tunk against this wooden mug that I have at my side. And it's just like, these are things that they're kind of just there for me. They're little things that only I'll know about, right? That sound is a constant reminder of, that's another little thing that I've kind of earned. In that instance, from an OC action, but it's something that kind of has sort of resonance with who my character is and stuff. I think it's interesting that there's can be like a sensory element that isn't just how other people perceive your character, but it's how you feel in your kit as well.
Yeah, massively. Do you jingle, Merlyn?
I don't jingle because it irritates me. I did have my dad bought me a snake spine necklace from the pool. And I was like, this is perfect, because before my first event, I put on what I had costume-wise from what I had in my wardrobe. My friend looked at me and went, oh, it's really cute. You're like a Navarre, but Tinkerbell. And I was instantly like, no, I don't want to be Tinkerbell. So then I still wear the same dress.
Tink is cool, but I appreciate you rejecting her as an archetype. Yeah.
So I still have a very Tinkerbell dress, and I still have the Tinkerbell silhouette, despite my best efforts. But then I have trousers with thorns embroidered up them and my boots. And now I have armor on top, so I look sort of rough and ready Tinkerbell, which honestly, Tinkerbell would definitely be Navarre.
Is
so
the best Tinkerbell.
I can appreciate that.
The best Tinkerbell.
So I don't clink specifically because noise irritates me sometimes, but I do find that like bit by bit things have happened. So I started off, my character had 3 parents, 2 died in a tragic backstory, which I didn't write, but my remaining parent wrote. And then my remaining parent went and died on a battle, and I was an orphan all over again. But my in-character sibling is very we're very like 2 sides of the same coin character-wise. So there's a lot of things. We live in the same house. We are the same size. There's a lot of things that we co-own. And so it comes to who is the sort of more rough and ready side, being me, and then the more put together, very annoyed by my antics, Clement. But I think bit by bit, things definitely built up. So as I said, shoes have been an issue for me, things that I can grip in, things that I can run about on wet leaves with.
100%.
And then also, when it gets dark, I go night blind, so I can literally see nothing from the start of Songs and Stories onward. Barely anything.
You're not alone in that. You're not
quite scary. But like bit by bit, I've got things. So I have a glowing crystal, which is in my pocket, but then it also has a tie on the inside of my trousers, so that if needs being, I can tie it to my shin, and it can be by my feet, so I can actually see as I walk.
That is actually smart,
because I have body slammed too many people into mud, and I'm so sorry.
I fairly unapologetically have a crafted kind of flashlight, basically, and I'm quite happy using that, especially when it gets to that time of night, right? Especially after a couple of Chardonnays, you can sometimes find yourself walking through uneven terrain.
Well, if it rains and it all turns to mud, I think and I mean, footwear is a whole other topic, but basically your safety and your comfort is number one. And
at all times, like whatever's happening at any point in LARP, you can always lift your hand up and say, help, I'm far too drunk and in bushes, could someone come get me?
Or cold, right? And so having a good cloak and all of those things are hugely important. Just having access to and enough kit to keep yourself warm and dry, and all of those sort of sensible things that you should try and kind of prepare yourself for. I didn't really want to necessarily
we're not talking
go into that. That wasn't really where I wanted to.
Definitely, but it's worth
all
mentioning.
That's important.
Yeah, so
all of that's very important.
Definitely wrap up warm. But let's talk about the necklace, because I bought actually it was a friend of mine who does 3D printing. I paid him to print me some teeth, which I made into a necklace, and she put little holes in them for me and everything. And they basically became my necklace to represent my old character. Now, when I died, again, I'm so sorry, it's so boring. At the performance of the just before the Coctopus performance as my final outing, I took off my necklace and gave it to Fire, who's played by Good Dave, and played by, is that
Yeah, that works.
Played by? Yeah. And I gave it to him being like, you gotta step up, you know what I mean, and be, the war chief from now
Passing
on.
on the mantle.
Yeah, and now the idea of the war chief always gets the necklace is a cool signifier, right? Like, I think there's something about a title, at least within a group's title, being like you carry something or you are reminded of something, right? Like the book, right? The Book of Sorrows, same concept.
We've had I think that's one thing we did do quite well actually when we first started, and one piece of advice we've given before and I'll give again is I think there's definitely the idea of having traditions with your group. If you're going as a group, just a few little things that you can build on, turns of phrase or aesthetical kind of touches, or just items and sort of pieces of kit actually go a really long way. Like we have this thing where we'll sort of say burn bright to each other, and that as just a little twist on things actually I'm
really curious about what other groups like. Does
must
your
be so
group,
much of this,
Merlyn, does your group have any like weird eccentricities that are like very specific to your group?
I mean, I think our group is confusing because out of character we're all really close friends. I live with about half of them, but we're getting huge. Like we've been for 1 year's worth of events. I've been to every one. I'm the only one who's been to every one of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And now the potential amount of people that are coming in the Striding next event is 21.
Wow.
Which is a lot of people. I'm the brand. It's quite a lot of pressure, but it's interesting because our games are very separate. So it's very much a case of, we wake up, we spend the morning like getting ready to go, then we all split and we don't see each other until we're all going to bed again.
This is
go off in our little groups. But it's
a huge
quite nice
problem
to have that end of the day thing. But it is kind of an issue of trying to not feel disconnected from your friends. But then obviously if you have different games and you enjoy different parts of it, there's no reason that somebody should have to not miss out on that. But we're just sort of trying to work out ways to include everybody and all feel as if we're at Empire together, not just sharing a tent.
Well, like taking advice from a friendly Navarre on who to vote for in certain elections, that's one thing that really makes people feel involved,
I mean, I think for example, we have this traditions. I think are just such a. I mean, there's a reason I think humans are drawn to certain types of traditions and so on to a certain extent. But for example, when Ifan died, to bring it up again, the idea that we had this sort of thing which is called the telling, where everybody will kind of gather around the fire and sort of tell a story about the person who's died, and it's kind of that is just a really simple kind of tradition. This is going to be no way unique.
Best. It's the absolute best. Like organizing funerals for your own striding is the best, and also realizing
nobody's died yet.
You guys are not playing. You guys are not playing the right game. Hopefully, with 21 of you, you'll have a much higher mortality rate. Because
come on, die quickly.
I think this is difficult maybe for new players who have only been to one or two events. If you die in an event, it can feel meaningless, and it might well be, right? Like you're still learning the game and have fun, and it was the experience of dying in the battle and making that decision was worthwhile. But when you're 3-4, events in or more, we could be talking like 7-8 for some people, right? When it is that person's time to go and there are stories being told about that person, you would be stunned at who shows up. You'd be like the respect from outside your group, which I think is one thing. You can get into your own group and really enjoy that, and that's totally fine, which is one of the best things about a festival LARP, where you can show up and just be within your own little posse, But when you start realizing the effect that you've had on the world, I think that's something just magical,
And I think there is this whole thing about as well. There's no pressure on feeling like you have to also be the person who has like a huge impact to when you die. There's a massive kind of there's a void.
it's all about personal experience.
Yeah, right.
One thing I was thinking about recently was, do you remember I told the story about how we all went to Songs and Stories, and there was a thing where you all hold your weapons up to the middle of the flame, right, and you walk around it. I remember me telling you then that it was just for me.
Yeah.
That's a really good example. There is a selfish side to all of this, which isn't, I say selfish like it's a bad thing. It is a bad thing, but more like a personal growth thing where you can experience things that you would never experience in your day-to-day life, and really commit to those role play elements and experience whole things that are just truly magical at LARP, right? Like,
I think we all go there for those moments when you lose yourself, right? And
yes,
those are, I mean, and it's the same in your mundane life. You know, there are moments where you lose yourself in your work, and that sort of flow state that you get in is enjoyable. There's a sort of a pleasurable attribution that comes with it. That inside role playing is magical. This idea that you can kind of transition into like just being for, and it might only be for brief moments, but those moments when you actually experience an environment as your character and you get to sort of indulge that aspect is so powerful and so rewarding to engage in. And to be honest with you, the real, you know, that's the good stuff, right? That's why you come back.
That's the good, right? I think we said it before we even went to an event that it was like, if I get 2 moments of immersion, right? Like, and I don't think you get that often. Like, you can get that through TV and film and gaming and D&D. There are certain moments, but there's something else about LARP, right? Like, it's really, really amazing when you get those moments of immersion.
I think you're physically there. You physically have to do the thing. You have to engage in it, and you have to engage in it with more, you know, with all that you are, because
there's no calm, right? There's no like, you get to, I'm gonna sit back and think about, like, say if you're playing D&D or a computer game, you can pause or think about it, or there's lots of things you can do. To a social one-on-one or one-on-a-group situation is like, it's happening right now in real time. There's no pause button, there's no do-over button. This is it, right? Like, it's I think there's something, the terrifying nature of what that is something, I don't know. I think it's amazing. I'm gonna please continue, Merlyn, but I'm gonna open a bottle of wine which will be audible. I just want to say clearly, okay. I only had 1 glass of wine. It was the end of a previous bottle. It's not like I've drunk 2 bottles of red right now. Okay, so here we go. Right, cool. Merlyn, please continue.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I think that what you're saying about immersion is quite important, because there's something to be said for not overthinking, but definitely thinking into things. Because sometimes there's going to be moments where the immersion is very almost there and you just need to tip yourself over the side. So my first event, I didn't do the one battle as my character. I monstered, but I didn't do the main battle. And I was stood by the gate and I watched Navarre line up, and I watched the people who I'd literally just met, my familiar faces, walk through the gate, and I was like, oh, this feels quite emotional. And then I just sort of, in my head, I was like, these are real people and they might never come back. And I just burst into floods of tears, because the people who I'd only just met with my only familiar faces might not return. And obviously you can snap yourself out of it and go, well, most people can, and if you can't, be careful with yourself. But, you know, they can go, you know, they'll all come back. But then there's something to be said for giving yourself the sort of permission to be immersed in it, because it was very difficult for me to begin with, to not feel silly, be like, it is okay to cry for these people, because everybody else around you is in that same belief that there are people who may never come back. And a really lovely druggie and medic came up and said, get some food in you, dry your tears, they'll come home when they're ready. And I was just great. Like,
so good.
And it was absolutely amazing. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, no, I'm coming back.
Legend,
my word.
Legend veteran, whoever that was. Like,
really good.
Shout out to that person. That's like that's solid. And I think we haven't really discussed it much, but bleed is something that it's a really complicated thing. I think that's worth a whole other thing. But like, just to touch on it briefly, like, bleed is basically when role playing bleeds into your own personal life and can sometimes have very strong emotional reactions. I think like bleed is kind of potentially part of what makes LARP so good, but it has to be managed. I think bursting into
It's definitely a
tears.
double-edged sword.
Yes.
It can be good or bad.
Yes,
Yeah.
I find it very therapeutic as a mirror to myself, like if that makes sense. And sometimes it can be quite cathartic to. It is quite cathartic to role play and sometimes have. For me anyway, and I think this is very different for different people, but for me personally, I really enjoy pushing up to the edge of who I am and what my experiences are, and experience something quite personal to me in a context that's manageable and has distance, and really fall into it and enjoy it, right? Like,
I think in role playing in general, I like my RP to go places, right? I like the idea of that I will give myself permission to allow my RP to take me on journeys. And I think as long as you're self-aware enough of, where you should, set yourself those kind of limitations and things and the ways you want to that you should need to be sort of aware. But if you're kind of aware of those kind of risks, the rewards are just so huge, and the ability to just explore and examine different aspects, it's such a huge part of it. And I think that really is why we keep coming back, just because
to double down on what you just said, though, allowing yourself permission is a big part of this.
I think you can often be caught up in and I'm a huge sort of victim of this in my own life. This idea of just constantly being nervous, right, in social situations, and I, I'm not a socially confident person. I'm fairly introverted in a lot of settings, but I've noticed through going to LARP that it has helped me sort of grow a little bit. I mean, it's not like overnight I become some kind of oratory kind of like powerhouse or whatever, but like there's the idea that I can go somewhere and I can actually deliver a speech and people will listen to me, right? At like the council, I can be like one of the main speakers at it, and like that has some kind of weight, and that I can go to a place where people are maybe just generally interested in who I am and what I'm doing. Like, obviously, that in your personal life that your friends and stuff are all interested in those kind of things. But I think it's
please,
I think the idea of having that as an exploratory avenue for yourself is just hugely beneficial.
I think it's more like I'll go back to it again. Allowing yourself to give yourself permission to do something. I think there's a lot of stuff to do with. We're getting very sidetracked here, and you're supposed to be the host, by the way. But when you allow yourself permission to maybe stretch out of the role that potentially you give yourself in life, right? Like, so we all write ourselves a narrative of who we are, right? And I think one thing about you is that maybe you wrote yourself the narrative that you weren't a confident, sociable person. And that's not the Ian I know, right? And that's one thing that's great about LARP, that it potentially allows a person to unlock sides of their personality through game, right? There are stuff that you can have aspirations to or an aim to do in part of this game. And in order to achieve those things, you have to push your boundaries, right? And I think that's something like so great about LARP, that you get to maybe question that self-portrait of yourself. Like I certainly don't view you as potentially like an introverted person. I think it's more like those things where you potentially feel more comfortable in an environment are very different from where you feel uncomfortable in an environment. I think LARP is something that has allowed you to at first feel very nervous in the environment and then blossom into the environment. And there you are in front of like a group full of people, some of them you know, some of them you don't know, some of them you respect, some of them that respect you, but you are able to allow yourself, as I said before, give yourself permission just to go for it, and be that, and I think you're a great example of that, dude.
Honestly. I think there's another really telling aspect that you kind of learn as you attend more events, and you kind of see there's these they seem like huge characters. If you were to go, when you go your first event, these are main characters, right? Like the kind of people who are really important in the nation or in the whole kind of setting, the people that stand out. And as you go more, you get to know them and stuff, and you realize that everybody is nervous, right? And everybody gets nervous in different ways. And I think that was a huge element for you, right? When you kind of, you went to an event and you kind of discovered that in certain situations, you weren't, you'd seen yourself in one way, and then there's a few things you didn't pursue in the way that you maybe expected yourself to, and then you came back and kind of and then did those things. And I think that was a hugely rewarding thing for you to engage.
Massively rewarding. Speaking of which, like, we went into a whole bunch of this stuff in an episode that we recorded with Justin Talisman. Talisman?
Yes.
Who is he's a really influential Navarre player. Unfortunately, we lost that episode due to poor sound quality. But I think we went into that where, like, Justin is a huge force in Navarre. His personality stretches out, like,
charisma for days.
Like, he's just a really great dude. And like, but one of the things that we touched on in that was, and we all spoke about it in a very personal way, but like, maybe not feeling that way while you're doing it, but the effect you can have on other people by doing it, right? Like by faking it until you make it, right? Like, there's something really great about LARP where you can just get on up there, put a brave face on, and really enhance other people's experience.
Yeah, having a crack. And everyone wants it to succeed, right? I think that's the really cool thing about LARP. And I think, although all of this, by the way, sounds like it's very off topic, I think what this really touches on is the fact that kit and character are actually so interlinked in the way that they inform each other. It's all fundamentally comes down to self-expression and the expression of the character that you discover as you move through your various events, and circumstances occur to your character. And how do you represent these events then, as items that you attribute to yourself, or people give to you, or you craft for yourself, or you make for yourself, to represent all of these extremely meaningful things that can happen, or they could be hilarious, small little things, or anything in between. But all of these things can kind of just feed back in to memories, LARP memories, and the way they come to me as I'm walking around my mundane life can just bring so much pleasure. Occasionally, just
all of us. I guarantee all of us just started smiling then when we said LARP memories, right? Like, it's something cool about that. Merlyn, please just fire into the conversation. By the way, like, me and Ian will do this a lot, so you need to fight. I was just going to say a lot of what we've been talking about is the idea of like costume versus kit to me, which is in my head is like costume. I see as something that you'd wear like on TV or in a film or as part of a play, or even as a cosplay. I'd say is different. Costume and kit are very different because you have to live in kit. It's the same as the idea of a character in D&D. For me, at least, is less of a person than a character in LARP, because some things that you can fake for that amount of time, or you can play as a character on stage, just don't work, because you can be a brooding D&D player because the DM is there making sure you still have game. Being a brooding person in LARP, it might work, but it's really difficult. You've got to have the hard skills to be able to pull it off. It's lonely. There's a lot of sort of stuff to be said for the idea of, your character is a person, so I think a lot of this about like downtime as well. When you step away from your character and you hang up their clothes, what are they doing? They've still got to have some kind of livingness to them.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and it's a lot, for me at least, when you were talking about the idea of giving yourself permission to do stuff and to do things that might make you feel silly. It makes me think of the so many times I've said to myself at LARP, oh, I won't do that because I'm not that kind of person. Like, I'm 18 years old. I don't know what kind of person I am. Right. The first time someone was saying, are you going to national training? And this was before I thought I was going to do combat. I said, no, I don't think. And then I stopped myself, the whole just say yes. I was like, okay, I'll go, but I don't know if I'll enjoy it. And I went and I enjoyed it. I haven't stopped since.
I hate to tell you this, Merlyn, but that feeling, it really doesn't change much the older you get. Like,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah, but
that's
it's
like,
just so ridiculous. The amount of my friends that have been like, "Oh, I'm just not that kind of person. Oh, I don't think I could do." The amount of people who've gone to LARP that I've taken to LARP that have said, "Oh, I mean, I'll go because you seem so passionate about it, but I won't like it because I'm not that kind of person." There is
yeah,
every kind of person at LARP, and there's
Yes.
every kind of character at LARP because there are such a variety.
I dude, like preach. I think that's a truth about people generally. Now, people do change. Like you can start off being a very open person and become closed, and a closed person can become open. But I think that's something that that there are certain people that will always have those certain attitudes, and certain people that will always reject them. Right. So it's interesting. Like you can take a donkey to water, but it won't necessarily drink, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there is a huge reward if you go to something like LARP. And to be honest, you could take this into other environments. When we're talking about LARP, ultimately, you are essentially engaging in a sandpit, a creative environment, right, with other individuals. So you don't have, it's not something you have complete control over. Like the sort of sandpit, you're in there with everyone else, and you're kind of rendering this experience collectively. And the idea that you again give yourself permission to indulge in that experience and explore that with everyone else, I think that the way and the avenues of possibility that opens up for you is just so rewarding and so freeing that's again, I think that's the sort of elements that will keep bringing you back, because in your mundane life, maybe that isn't something that is readily available to you. Maybe you don't have those kind of possibilities all the time, and many people don't, and it's it does open up all these kind of, as I say, these kind of LARP memories. Like I'm just constantly like walking around, and occasionally I'll just hum one of the songs from Songs and Stories, or I'll think back to like the time this happened, or I'll remember something that someone said. And it's your experience, Merlyn, when you were talking about this character who didn't know you, came up to you and said these words that had sort of poignancy at that moment, and they said it in character, right? And you may never see that person again, and the way that all of these incidental kind of moments can kind of fall in, and actually how you can provide those moments as well is so rewarding. The idea that you can actually be the person who can have, say, that one line to somebody that maybe has like value, and that's not necessarily something that you always, even though it probably is true, something that you don't always feel enabled to do in real life. But in LARP, it's something that can very, very truly be a force that you can bring to bear.
Yeah, sorry, just to butt in, like it's giving yourself permission to do it. And I think like LARP is one of those things where you can give yourself permission to do it because there's a game involved where you want to succeed in it, right? Like, or whatever that might be, for whatever challenge you might set for yourself. And I think that more unlocks something in the real world about what you're potentially capable of, right?
I mean, and I think like to feed on that and to sort of hone back into the original topic, I think this also feeds into the idea of gifts, right? The idea that you can give gifts to people and receive gifts as well, and have these kind of relationships that develop and that can be expressed, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about, really. We're talking about expressions of ourselves, expressions of how we want a relationship to be represented, and what kind of interactions we want to have, and we can do all these things in a really creative and freeing environment where we can just have fun and just indulge all of these different things, and it's hugely rewarding.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about the idea of relationships being one of the most important things to do with gifts. In that, so obviously my last IC parent to die, they were from the Brass Coast, and they had a lot of colourful scraps of fabric on their costume. And afterwards we went to the camp, the Calamarigueros, and they gave us what we'd been left for by them. and it was really lovely. But then also we were allowed to take a strip of the cloth from the
That's really
costume,
cool.
and now that's between the 2 layers of my mage armor, so nobody else can see it. Now you all know it's there. But I have a part of their old costume in between, and it's those little things.
Yes.
Obviously, like when you first begin, you don't know where you want to add them, and that's fine. But over time, I find for me, the bits of my costume I'm the most proud of are things that people will probably never notice, that you can't see, or like embroidery that's hidden under another layer of clothing. Just bit by bit by bit, it builds up the story of the person you are and the character you're wearing, and it makes things feel more real. Because for me, the biggest issue I have with immersion isn't when I'm talking to people. I mean, I do feel a bit silly to begin with, and I feel worried that I'm going to embarrass myself, but there's that person to build off and to feel like you're not in control, but in the image, you're there, you're part of it. But then as soon as I'm walking to somewhere on my own, I get that very aware of me, Merlyn, as a person, and just to sort of have more of your character and more of the game almost woven into the clothes you're wearing keeps you in it a little bit.
Really
especially
helps.
for
I really
me.
love that. I think that's such a
Like you were
I think
saying
that's
with
such a
the
great point.
tapping of your cup, most people don't know what it is, but for you, you're walking along. I don't know. I'm acting.
No, that is literally why I have it like that.
Keep you in it a little bit.
Yeah, that's literally why I have it like that. I have purposely wrapped this medallion essentially so it taps against the cup, just so it literally serves as a rhythmic reminder of this is me. When I've got it on, I'm in character, and it makes a noise that even when I'm walking on my own, having, and you're constantly walking on your own, generally from one meeting to another meeting to, whatever it is you're doing, you've gone to the loo, you've come back, all those kind of things. And it's like those moments when you're on your own, especially if it's your first few events, can actually, as you say, be quite kind of moments where suddenly you're kind of in your own mind again. And of course, your own mind falls back into old habits. Yeah, exactly. Those old habits as well of just self-doubt and being pulled out of the moment. And that's why it's so rewarding to have such a visual experience around you when you're at LARP, and why something like Empire as well is so amazing, because the vista of a festival LARP, or a LARP where everyone's in phenomenal kit, and there's so many people who put so much effort in, and I can only thank everyone for all of the effort they put into all of their kit, because they're just moments where you look across at a sea of just... who knows how many thousands of collective hours have gone into every inch of your vision. It's so captivating. And so those kind of treats, those visual treats that are just around you all the time, can really just be such an assistance to sort of keeping you in the moment. And that's trying to cherish that. But again, having these things yourself that you can have for you is so valuable and so rewarding. And the fact that these things are often essentially avatars of memory, of experiences that you've earned and had and shared, it's just hugely rewarding. And I'm constantly like, my mind outside LARP is constantly getting drawn back into those moments where I'm just like, yeah, that's a happy time, right? There's so many happy times where I can just be drawn back into those kind of LARP events and those LARP experiences. And sometimes they're literally things that I'm almost like a camera, right? Almost like a film crew looking at things. Seeing Dave as Ifan around that fireball, he's in a moment, and he's just said in this very podcast, it was for him. But it was also for me, because I'm there on the outside of the circle looking in, seeing my best friend playing this character, experiencing that moment, and it's a captivating experience, right? Something where you're just like, yeah, that is just like, how often do you really get to see the people you love experiencing awesome experiences that you can tell are bringing them something, and that in itself is rewarding. It's so hugely meaningful to have visions like that are etched into my memory that I'll carry with me for all time. And that's what LARP brings. All of these times where I get to share it with all of these incredible people who I'm fortunate enough to experience life with. And then we can have this kind of collective tapestry that we can build of memory and experience and crafting and kit and everything that's gone into it, right? That we've all put effort in, and it's effort sort of spent and rewarded through our shared experience. It's so magical.
Ian, that was lovely. But I think that's got to be a record.
Mega monologue.
No, Ian, that's incredibly sweet, man. I do appreciate that. It's yeah. I mean, the experiences we have at LARP can be, formative and life changing, right? And I think like Merlyn, you coming in at such an early age is something that I would. I don't know. I think it would be so great if I discovered LARP earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. It's strange because there's a lot of LARP that I just see in my life because I've been really lucky with my life experiences, and a lot of time, like especially around the fire at Songs and Stories, it is akin to other parts of my life, but the difference is honestly my whole year is based around the Empire calendar at this point. The first thing I do at the beginning of the new year is I'm like, okay, work, I'm sorry, but you can't have me for this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, or that weekend, and it's non-negotiable.
I think we're all in that boat to a certain extent. Like, it's funny when we first went, and when like our first few events, and we were, we honestly didn't know what to expect really, and we thought, at worst, right, it's going to be like a fun experience that we share. But now I'm waiting to get those dates for the events, and I'm just straight away writing them in the diary, the work diary, because as you say, they're non-negotiable. And it's funny how it's expanded as well, because it used to just literally be the days, and now it's like, well, actually, I kind of really want the Thursday. I really want that Thursday as well, and
you got to get that.
It would be good if we had the Wednesday, so I could pack without stressing. And
a Wednesday, I would go for a Wednesday. I'll definitely have to investigate the shower block more if I went on a Wednesday. But
going on Thursday is phenomenal, right? Like, so good.
Yeah. Well, Ian.
Yes. Sorry.
Do you have anything else to talk about when it comes to crafting you?
Well, actually, I was going to then. We should actually try and rein this massively back in. If you guys can bear to do a bit more, and just is like, obviously we've been going through the whole COVID experience and the big break that's brought. So there's been time for crafting, and I'm speaking for myself. There's also been time not to craft as well. And to both think about LARP and to be productive and unproductive in so many different ways. Is there anything that you guys have been working on or working towards or looking forward to work on as you move into sort of where we're going to be in the future with your characters?
Well,
yes, I have quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I've finished my third iteration of Mage Armor.
Okay.
Because the first one was good. The first one was the one that you saw me make on the stream. It was okay. It was okay. But the shape wasn't quite right. It's a bit flat. It's a bit wide for me. I'm too small for it, basically. Anyway, so hopefully somebody in the Vines will want that, but it's not the Vines diamond on it. So there we go. Gifting kit. I've also made a Mage Armor that is a fizz rep of a magical item. So hopefully I can be a little less squishy and have to run away slightly less often. So that's exciting. And then the third one I finished, which is very similar to the first one, but obviously a different design, because if I do gift the first one to someone else, I don't want them to feel like they're forced into having matching kit with me. And then also we finally have designed our Striding logo after 4 events without one. And
what's the basic sort of shape and gist of it?
So it's a half moon of sort of tangly. One side goes into vines for us and like the less combat-y side, and the other side goes into thorns for our thorns. And we've got a ribbon of like magic / potion looking liquid woven through it for our alchemists.
That's really cool.
And it's braided in the middle because obviously with the new Hearth magic update we wanted some of the braidingness. And then we really wanted something in the middle that sort of symbolized freedom, because our group was mostly founded by ex-slaves. So we're thinking
sounds like heresy to me.
Yeah, well, we're thinking a bird because we saw a lot on the ship leaving. So we've got a starling because they just sort of worked with a lot of what we wanted. We started off with birds of prey, but then we were like, well, we're not all birds of prey. A lot of us aren't super heavy combat, or we just didn't get imagery. So it was a lot of trial and error. I think I drew 8 different versions with different birds after the first like 8 preliminary sketches, so it's been a lot of drawing. And
I think this is a
this
thing
week,
with. Sorry.
I get to paint it on the big leather thing that we have to hang it up, and I'm very excited. And I've made a rug, and I'm very excited now. I get to buy a
What
ball
bird
pen
did you go
and set
for?
up. Bird starling. In the end,
Yeah.
because we wanted a dark one, but obviously not black, because we didn't want to be too winter marky with their storm crows. So we
Yeah,
thought
of course.
a small, not aggressive looking, but also starlings are absolute buggers and the total bullies of the feeding table. They've got beautiful colours in them, freedom, family. We're just So it's a
Yeah.
start.
That sounds great.
There's this kind of really interesting thing when you're kind of crafting. It was interesting listening to you talk about the idea of, different iterations of your armor, and it kind of reminded me of mine. And you can learn so much through making something that you instantly know how you would do it better, and the lessons you learn along the way of making it teach you, how version 2 will look, and then, as you say, version 3. Like, I remember my first armor was just so like pants compared to what I have now, and even now, like my current armor, I'm tempted to kind of like take it apart again and redo it in quite a few ways. It's just finding the time and stuff to do it.
We started in earnest making my Lamlar armor. We even did it on the stream.
Yeah,
that is sitting in a bag in the corner of my room, like not doing anything right now.
It's a big job, though. It's a big.
Yeah, but it's like I think there's something to be said about quarantine.
Yeah,
like it's so difficult.
It's so difficult.
Yeah,
I have the feeling like as soon as an event gets, like, we know there's an event, right?
Yeah.
E1 is on this date. This is when it's happening. Then suddenly I'll be like this whirlwind of action going, oh my God, I've had months to do this. I should have done this ages ago. And I'll be trying to do all this stuff, write letters and, do all the things, basically. It's going to be
where so many people are going to be. I mean, that's where I am with so many different things. I mean, I've fallen into other hobbies and done other things along the way. I mean, there's things I've done for LARP. In fact, we're doing like a Secret Santa thing, and I've been putting together some stuff for that. But
it's a LARP Christmas Santa for LARP content creators, which is a weird group for us to be.
I was going to say, if it's Empire-wise, that sounds quite heretical. I don't think.
No, it's people from the States. It's people from all over, basically. So we're involved in that. Ian's put something together quite nice. We have no idea what. Oh, we should also mention that we're going to do a Christmas stream. Around towards Christmas time, maybe the 23rd, maybe. I don't know, but like,
we will be posting it up.
We'll see.
Finalize the date.
We're gonna have a quiz, which is gonna be exciting, and also we're gonna do a giveaway, winky face. So and details of that will be on the our Facebook page towards December time, basically.
And that'd be really good fun to. I mean, it's strange. I mean, obviously we haven't recorded so much over this period as well. I mean, you've been just much more productive than me on that front. It's a strange time, and I think everyone's kind of I'm sure going through similar kind of processes in their own kind of experience with LARP, trying to find those spaces for whatever you need to do and whatever sort of serves you best. And
weirdly, I've had a recent rekindling in kind of creativity. So I'm sure this happens in waves, right? Like I think the key is to not beat yourself up when you're in a trough, and just to take advantage of it when you're on the high. Do you know what I mean? Like
definitely.
Right, and I think that's how creativity works for most people. Dare I say it?
And I think, to be honest with you, that even translates. Sorry, go for it.
I definitely say it would. I go to art college. I have done, like, I might have been productive in the last few weeks. LARP-wise, I had a big hype boom, but it's been scary. It's been scary to get hyped and hopeful for LARP, because you know one's coming. You don't know when it's coming. And it is scary. I feel like I'm going to jinx it. It feels like the new kit curse times 100. I've got new kit, and it's been sat there for months, and it's missed a whole year, and it's been ready for so long, and so much expectation is piling up on it. That I think when the next event is announced, I'll be overjoyed, but I'll be quite scared. I think it'll feel like going for the first event again because it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's. Do you know what? I think that's I think that's a really great point about being potentially scared about going to the first event. If you're not, then fair enough. But I'm sure there are plenty of people out there listening to this that are like, "Yep." Do you know what I mean? Like 100%. I think it's going to be. I think, like we were talking about this, Ian, weren't we? And we were talking about how potentially our first E1, we might not do a huge amount of game, right? Like we might potentially just be really satisfied by being proper E1 noobs, go for a few drinks and icy coin, skirmishes, battles, hanging out. Like
that's
that
my whole
might
game now.
Yeah, but that might potentially be all that my E1 might be, right? Like it's something just hanging out with the lads as part of the striding, right? And getting to meeting all the old faces. Like it's
seeing all the people.
So
I mean,
cool.
that's why, to be honest with you, I mean, that's, you know, one of the main rewards of going, of course, is to see all the people you've made sort of relationships with, right? Like all that's the big reward, right? Is to see all of those people again and their characters and to enjoy their company. And
dude, how telling is it with people that you're communicating with in the LARP community? Like there are people that I know solely through LARP, and we talk all the time. You know what I mean? Like it's just it may not even be about LARP nowadays, right?
No.
Like you can build some really strong friendships through going to these things with really kind of like with unexpected friends, I would say. You know, people that like you would never really bump into or get to know, but LARP is this great vehicle to be like, well, we both have loads in common that aren't necessarily surface value, and we'll make a really good friendship out of it, you know?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I guess it kind of went off on quite a few tangents throughout the episode, but hopefully...
Ian, are you saying that an episode hosted by you went a little bit on tangents?
Hey, I'm not sure I want to take full responsibility for it. I think it was a shared experience where we all kind of saw...
It was Ian, I'm not going to argue. It was a shared experience, that's for sure. I just worry about, like, Merlyn. I feel like we're going to have you on again. It's or another stream maybe.
We'll sort something out. I mean,
by the way, I think our stream that we had, it's on our YouTube channel, and it's also, I think it's still on Twitch, which is Dave the LARPer is what I've been streaming on. But it's a really fun stream. So if you enjoyed this, it's we had a really good chat on the crafting stream.
That was there's a really kind of lovely therapeutic kind of a chill kind of stream as well, where we were all three of us were just sitting there crafting.
Yeah, we should do this again, by the way, just so I can finish my armor. Like, you know,
give you the motivation.
Like once I'm in front of the camera, I'll be like, you better craft right now, you know?
It is actually really nice to sort of just to sit and talk about LARP and to sort of craft and have things sort of like working as a group. It's actually quite nice.
Well, isn't it like actually it's kind of because me and Ian can come over and craft together, right? But there's something about like, well, Merlyn's the other side of the country. Well, not the other side of the country.
Peer pressure. It's peer pressure.
Well, it is
peer pressure into motivation.
Yeah.
I'm just, I might be a radical, but a little bit of peer pressure doesn't always hurt.
Goes a long way.
I mean, I'm just saying, you know, but
if your peers have your best interest at heart, then it's probably okay.
If it's in a healthy environment where everyone's
pushing you to finish your damn kit, Dave.
Yeah. I want to be, I would love to be like wearing my new Lamlar armor, you know, you put it on, E1, let's go, you know, like I think that could be really fun, you know, like
something recently about when you managed to get the previous episode, which listeners may have listened to at this point, out about the idea, there's just the reward of finishing a project. And I finished.
that was on my personal Facebook page where I said, "There's no, it's fine. It's fine. It's like basically I said like there's very few feelings in life that are better than finishing a project, and I mean that genuinely. Every time we get an episode out, it really means like it's a great feeling. Like and seeing people download it and listen to it, it's really cool. Like we really like doing it. So occasionally we take a bit of a break here and there through lots of reasons. But like, I don't know, like we tried to record episodes. It's tough. It's really tough trying to find people with good audio equipment and like not have too many technical issues and all the rest of it. So you know, it is what it is, but definitely getting an episode out feels awesome. So if you're getting to the end of this episode, and just thank you very much for listening to it, really.
Yeah, and staying with us and staying on those crazy little pathways that we've kind of navigated that were way off topic. I had all of these things written down, and maybe we'll come back and talk about them in some other capacity some other time. But
we'll come up with another title, and then we'll just have Merlyn on again, basically.
Yeah, I think it has been interesting going into all of this, and I think it would be something that'd be nice to sort of touch on in some other capacity. And I'm sure we'll explore it in other ways.
Ian, zero regrets about the conversation we just
had.
It was
good.
Really it's really nice to talk about this with you guys, and kind of like it's nice to get a bit of camaraderie over this time period. So it's good, man. It's really good.
Yeah, it's been every time I get a big Empire hype, and I'll go on my Facebook and like click on somebody I know from Empire and be like, I miss you. Not to be weird, but I really miss you.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true, actually.
I can't wait to fight you as a monster.
Oh man, I managed to actually finish my new monstering kit as well. I mean, that's been one of the things that I did manage to achieve over the whole break, was to get my monstering armor sort of done and
you say all that stuff
productive,
right?
But I've done a lot. I did a lot early on, right?
This is the thing. I think there's I think it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was talking about like projects that I had on the go at the moment. I was just like, man, I haven't done this, and I haven't done this, and I really want to do this. And I wish this was, going ahead the way I wanted it to. And they said to me like, oh, Dave, like, do you know what I accomplished last month? I finished Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the second time. And I was like, man, you know what? Sometimes we can really like beat ourselves up about projects that we want to finish. But let's give ourselves a break and enjoy the little victories as they come, right?
I think you can give yourself permission to have a break as well. I think that's the whole part of the lesson, to be honest with you.
The world's falling apart. I mean, if there's a time to take a little break on yourself for having creative projects, I think once you once you get back into a creative project, it can be really cathartic. So, and that's waiting for you if you're not there now. But if you are there now, get on it. Work tomorrow, work today, like do it 20 minutes, just give it a little go,
It's really good. Just sitting down and doing this was really nice, like, to be honest.
Honestly, anything small that gets you started and makes you feel like you've done absolutely a tiny little bit, even if it's just 1% more than nothing, is really impressive. Because I've had a struggle with art college, especially the pressure of doing creative things for my academics,
deadlines,
and then also trying to do creative things for enjoyment. It's difficult. It's difficult. We were quarantined from college, and I've just spent a week doing not much, lots of cleaning and cooking for people, and honestly, it's been great.
Yeah.
Might get complained to on Monday, but it's been great. And I think you need to look after yourself, because otherwise you form the sort of negative connotations with the thing that you actually really enjoy doing. You're going to struggle to enjoy it as much in the future forever.
Yeah.
So it's better to have a couple of unproductive weeks than never enjoy the thing again.
Yeah, I'm looking at right now. I bought for all you Games Workshop nerds, I bought Blackstone Fortress. It's a box set with loads of miniatures in it. And I've got this whole army that I've been collecting that I haven't painted. So to do it, what I've done is I literally looked up a help to paint guide on YouTube, and I'm now looking at some nudie based and primed miniatures. I'm just waiting for some paints to come in, and I'm going to start painting, right? Like really basic, not putting too much pressure on myself. I don't mind if these guys look terrible, but I'm really looking forward to that as a creative project, right? Yeah. And I think that kind of like opens the door to LARP creativity and everything else that goes along with it. So I'm excited to get back on the train, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a step. I'm sort of doing some Warhammer collecting stuff as well, and
I could have sworn it was only one of you that was planning on doing it, and the other was saying, "No, my bank account."
No, yeah, I instantly crumbled, Merlyn.
His defenses were so weak, Merlyn.
He showed me,
broke them down so fast.
He showed me pictures of the space robots, and I couldn't resist.
I just needed to.
Peer pressure.
The only
peer
thing
pressure
I
in its negative form.
No, the only thing I needed to do was find the right bait. And as soon as I dangled it out there long enough, Ian he hooked onto it and like I could barely hold on to the line to bring him on the boat. You know what I mean? It was really he wanted it.
Merlyn, they're Egyptian space robots with like star gods.
Shush. Because I am a student who is unemployed. Just shush. Just stop.
It's so good.
All right, we should get off topic here. So again, Merlyn, thank you so much for joining us again. We'll definitely do it again at some point. And thank you to our patrons who are long suffering at this stage. May God have mercy on your souls. Thank you so much. And thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Ian,
Love
do you
all.
want to see us out?
Strength to the Empire.
Strength to Navarre.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. John wasn't ever the most sociable chap at the best of times, but you'd be hard-pushed to find a more isolated place to live. Now that is curious. Seems as though John was expecting company. See the way those spiked fences and ditches are arranged to funnel our movements? Pass me that stick. Now, if I know John, he would have placed a trap just here. I think we should watch our footing from here on. Follow me!